Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. At the North Pole of Saturn, there is a storm. Not a circular storm, not a spiral, a hexagon. A perfect, regular six-sided polygon approximately 30,000 kilometers wide, so large that 4 Earths could fit side by side across it. The hexagon's sides are each approximately 13,800 kilometers long. It has been there for at least 38 years, since Voyager 2 first photographed it in 1981. It rotates once every 10 hours 39 minutes, matching Saturn's rotation. And after decades of study, scientists have a plausible mathematical explanation for how it forms, but the mechanism remains counterintuitive and striking. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the expanding frontier of unexplained cosmic phenomena, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Space exploration has produced many surprises, but perhaps none as persistent as the anomalies that professional scientists describe and then struggle to explain. These are not the claims of amateur enthusiasts or fringe theorists. They are the published findings of researchers. At NASA, the European Space Agency, and major research universities, documented in peer-reviewed journals and presented at professional conferences, then quietly filed under requires further investigation while the scientific mainstream moves on to the next mission. The anomalies take different forms: unexpected geological features on planetary surfaces that do not match known formation processes, electromagnetic signals that arrive from directions where no known source exists, orbital mechanics of small bodies that deviate from the predictions of established gravitational models in ways that suggest an additional, undetected force. Each individual anomaly might be dismissed as an instrument artifact or a modeling error. But when anomalies accumulate across multiple missions, multiple instruments, and multiple research teams, the collective weight becomes harder to discount. Science advances precisely by taking anomalies seriously, by treating the things that do not fit the mode as invitations to improve the model rather than as embarrassments to be minimized. The history of physics is largely a history of anomalies. The precession of Mercury that Newtonian gravity could not explain, the cosmic expansion that Einstein refused to accept, the dark matter that bends light with no visible source. Each one, properly investigated, expanded the boundaries of what we understand. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Saturn's hexagonal polar storm was first imaged by Voyager 1 in November 1980 and confirmed by Voyager 2 in 1981. It was then observed again by Cassini spacecraft, which spent 13 years in Saturn orbit from 2004 to 2017, providing detailed imagery in multiple wavelengths and at different seasons. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the hexagon appears to be a standing wave pattern in Saturn's atmosphere caused by the interaction between Saturn's rapid rotation and the atmospheric jet streams at the North Pole. Laboratory experiments have reproduced hexagonal patterns in rotating fluid systems under specific differential rotation conditions. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The hexagon contains a massive central cyclone approximately 2,000 kilometers across at its geometric center, with wind speeds up to 500 km/h. Smaller storms circulate around the interior of the hexagon's boundary. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Cassini observed that the hexagon changed color from blue to gold between 2012 and 2017, a change attributed to seasonal variation in Saturn's photochemistry as the North Pole moved from winter to summer. The change in sunlight altered the production of haze particles that affect the color. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of laboratory experiments by Aguirre et al. Successfully reproduced hexagonal patterns by rotating a cylinder of water at different speeds in its inner and outer regions. The six-sided shape appears when the ratio of rotation speeds between inner and outer rings falls within a specific range, consistent with Saturn's atmospheric dynamics. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: similar polygonal storms, pentagons, hexagons, and other shapes have been reported at the poles of other planets, suggesting the mechanism is a general atmospheric fluid dynamics phenomenon rather than something specific to Saturn. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Saturn's hexagon is a persistent Rossby wave pattern, a stationary atmospheric wave generated by the Coriolis effect, acting on different rotation speeds at different latitudes near the pole. The six-sided shape results from the specific number of smaller eddies, 6, that fit around the pole under Saturn's rotation conditions. This is the mainstream scientific explanation, supported by laboratory experiments and atmospheric models. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the hexagon represents a more complex interplay between multiple atmospheric layers and deep convection than current models account for, and our understanding of its persistence over decades and its specific geometry remains incomplete even if the general wave mechanism is correct. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Saturn's hexagon is maintained by deep atmospheric dynamics, possibly related to structures extending thousands of kilometers beneath the visible cloud tops, that anchor the surface hexagonal pattern against the disruption that would normally break up such a regular structure on shorter timescales. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Cassini's 13 years of continuous observation documented the hexagon's persistence through an entire Saturnian season, confirming that it is a stable, long-lived atmospheric feature rather than a transient weather event. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented laboratory experiments successfully reproducing hexagonal patterns in rotating fluids provide physical proof that the mechanism required to produce the hexagon exists in nature and does not require exotic processes. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed Voyager observations from 1981 combined with Cassini observations from 2004-2017 confirm the hexagon has persisted for at least 36 years without significantly changing its geometry, which constrains any explanation to predict long-term stability. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Saturn's hexagon is now understood as an extraordinary example of atmospheric fluid dynamics, a geometric pattern stable enough to persist for decades in one of the solar system's most dynamic environments. It has inspired new mathematical models of atmospheric fluid dynamics applicable to Earth's own atmosphere and to exoplanet atmospheres. Cassini's final images of the hexagon, transmitted before the spacecraft plunged into Saturn's atmosphere in September 2017, remain among the most remarkable close-up images of a planetary atmospheric feature ever taken. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Saturn's hexagon, the geometric storm that defies explanation, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Saturn hexagon ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.